right away they went to the constitutional powers, and was Congress notified, and saying this is a declaration of war, and going a little overboard in terms of what exactly the constitutional parameters are. But overall, it's been really interesting to see even people like Senator John Fetterman, who's a Democrat, recognize that this kind of action from the United States was necessary to prevent Iran from achieving nuclear capabilities. And that seems to be the focal point here, that this wasn't a declaration of war. This was something different that is more strategic in not only our national interests, but I think overall in terms of foreign policy.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's going to be very hard to convince the American people that this was not a well-timed, well-calibrated strike against the Islamic Republic regime in Iran that's shouted, at every opportunity, death to America, death to Israel for the last 40 plus years since 1979.
Yeah, and so there remains a question of how much of this uranium, because it was 60% nuclear grade uranium enrichment, that then, as Secretary of State Marco Rubio pointed out on another media hit, that that becomes very easy to quickly get to full nuclear capabilities because of these types of weapons that haven't been used before, these bunker busters. Is there any concern that there is nuclear radiation or anything like that on these types of sites, or what do we know about those potential risks?
Yeah, so I think it's very important for your audience to understand that nuclear fallout here on a global, certainly global and regional scale, is highly, highly unlikely. Fallout from nuclear warheads is a result of the nuclear chain reaction during the nuclear explosion, not a result of the fissile materials themselves. Although the fissile materials that were stored underground at these sites is radioactive, it is not. It will not produce the type of fallout that a nuclear explosion would create. These are conventional bombs that we used, essentially scattering the fissile material, and most of it scattered underground and contained on site. Obviously, that's, we have to, ideally we'd be able to get some folks on site to be able to really truly understand the extent, but I believe this is essentially zero risk to anywhere except for locally at those locations. And we're not even talking about, a nuclear meltdown. That's, again, a chain reaction that produces significant amount of radiation. This is not even on that scale.
And I'm speaking with Ray Alexander, who is a retired U.S. naval commander, and you can follow him on X for a lot of really great insights on this topic and a lot of others at RMA 1776. That's RMA 1776 on X. And how significant is it, Ray, that the U.S. used a bunker buster rather than a conventional missile, or what message does this send for the military and diplomatically?
Yeah, so this is the first time we've ever used one of these massive ordnance penetrators, so a GBU-57 MOP. First time in actual combat, in an actual strike. We've obviously used them before in testing. And yes, this sends a pretty serious message that the United States is willing to use force to protect our national interests. It gives credibility to our negotiating powers when it comes to the use of force, as opposed to, say, for example, the Biden don't doctrine or the Obama red line doctrine, where we would draw a line in the sand and then this line would summarily be marched over by oppositional forces.
And, looking back historically, I was talking with several friends, actually you included, over the weekend, but one of my friends mentioned how President Bill Clinton, back in the early 90s, had an opportunity to take out Osama bin Laden and essentially chickened out. And some of that action that's been recorded in, some of the history books, and also, others who were part of that operation have suggested that if Clinton had taken that type of action, similarly to what we're seeing here, that 9/11 might have been prevented. It could have altered the trajectory of history. And so there's been a lot of comparisons, interestingly, that have been made to that calculation from former President Clinton to the very different and very robust calculation of President Trump. And so, in terms of protecting our national interests, the main line from the White House has always been, we have to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear capabilities. What does this, in your mind, signal about the possible preventions of what Iran might have been capable of in the future?
Yeah, so a nuclear-armed Iran would have given them a massive additional arrow in their quiver. They announced very early on, the current Iranian Islamic Republic regime announced very early on their desire to achieve regional hegemony and become an actor on the global geopolitical stage. Their three-pronged approach toward that was to develop regional proxies, terror proxies, as we saw in Hamas, Hezbollah, Assad, the Assad regime in Syria, the Houthis in Yemen, to influence politically and religiously via the Shia branch of Islam. And then the third arm of that approach would be to attain nuclear capability. That has been a very clearly articulated goal. And you can go back and listen to quotes from previous presidents that acknowledge that goal. It is not a hidden goal to achieve a nuclear weapon that could then be used in much more significant and influential ways to negotiate or to intimidate regional countries, but also geopolitically, globally, geopolitically. They would have been a much more formidable threat.
And so how does this affect Iran's calculus potentially regarding its nuclear program or proxy engagements?
Well, that's a great question. I think a lot of that depends on what happens next in Iran. Do the people rise up and attempt to replace the Islamic Republic with a more progressive, modern, democratic government? Progressive, I don't mean in a kind of it's a loaded term, but a more democratic government, a more modern government. If that's the case, then there is an opportunity to be constructive and to have a creative vision for the future. Kind of what Trump has said: commerce over chaos, technology over terrorism. If Iran chooses that way, if the Iranian people choose that approach, there's a lot to be optimistic about in the future for the future of Iran and in the future regionally. There are a lot of opportunities right now to turn the tide against conflict and corrosive relationships and intimidation and bullying to one of concerted commerce and cooperation in the region. When I was deployed to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in 2017, 2018, there was a lot of optimism for connecting rail lines and logistics networks, for opening up borders and opening up trade between these countries, which have, for at least decades, maybe centuries, have been at each other's throats. And I believe that Trump actually, big picture, has a broader vision of kind of a creative and constructive vision for the Middle East. I mean, it's reflected in his idea for Mara Gaza, for example, which sounds outlandish, but it's really kind of the only positive vision that any sort of influential global leader has really suggested for the region. And I can see the same thing happening in Iran if the Iranian people seize this moment.
And a lot of the talk from the United States, not only President Trump and his administration, but even Senator Ted Cruz and other Republicans, have been about regime change in Iran as part of that very future. What would that look like, and how would the United States and Israel, obviously as allies together in this, accomplish that?
Yeah, so I want to be very careful when I approach regime change, because as you know, there are even conservative voices who are implying that the goals of this strike were regime change. And I don't believe that the United States has the current leadership has any interest in actually forwarding regime change. However, if regime change happens as a result of this conflict that was, again, it's a 40-year-long conflict that was exacerbated by the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th, we will, of course, I wouldn't say of course, but it depends upon, I think a lot of that depends on unpredictable circumstances in Iran. I think although Iran is much more stable culture, Iran has been around for 4,000 years, going all the way back to the Achaemenids, Xerxes, and their conflicts with the Greeks. That culture is a relatively uniform ethnic culture going all the way back thousands and thousands of years. Contrast that with Iraq, which has been washed over by invading forces for thousands of years, or Afghanistan, which is the same way. There's a much more stable sense of culture and homogeneity in Iran. They do have some multiculturalism, some different ethnicities in Iran, but it's much more homogenous than to compare it to Iraq. So I want to make sure we're fighting. We argue against the heuristic that this is going to become an Iran. It is certainly not, and that is certainly, I don't believe, has ever been the intention. This strike was intended to be one strike to take out as a target of opportunity to take out, very high value targets with a relatively low risk mission in uncontested airspace. If the Iranian people decide to bring their country in a more positive, constructive direction, I believe that the current administration will be certainly happy to trade. I believe that trade and commerce will be the way out of this, and I also believe that the current executive administration believes that as well. And in fact, I think Iran could become a very powerful economic force in the region. I believe they have the capacity, capability, natural resources, and geopolitical location in order to do so.
And I think that's an important distinction, especially with some of the challenge and the opposition to Trump's decision in this military strike on Saturday. And so drawing those lines very carefully is important. Speaking to Ray Alexander, and you can follow him on X at RMA1776, retired U.S. Naval Commander. And, with this on Saturday and the United States taking this step, there has been a lot of concern about Iran's retaliation. We've already seen that against Israel overnight, but against the United States, and not from Iran directly, but some potential sleeper cells or other operations that may already exist in the United States and especially larger metropolitan cities. How do you assess that potential risk, and whether or not Americans should be concerned about that?
Okay. When it comes to just on a big picture point, or a big picture perspective, if folks try to make an argument that we shouldn't have done this strike because Iran would activate its sleeper cells in the United States, that's essentially a non-starter argument. If there are sleeper cells in the United States, that's a bad condition, and we shouldn't be prevented from making this type of strike due to a threat of activating sleeper cells. It's sort of an unknown threat. And we, as a global hegemon, as a global superpower, can't allow the threat of sleeper cells to influence whether or not we would take advantage of this type of strike. Getting to the sleeper cells, if there are sleeper cells in the United States, I'd rather have them be activated so that we can address them, so that we can take them out and root them out, than just have them here quietly being a threat, some ambiguous threat against the homeland. I'd rather have there be increased communications between whomever might be activating sleeper cells to the sleeper cells themselves, which will give our internal Homeland Security forces the opportunity to identify them and potentially take them out in advance. Do I think that, not a likelihood, do I think that sleeper cells in the United States exist? Probably. And I think that risk increased with the last 6 to 8 to 10 to 12 years of, especially under the two Democratic administrations, of relatively unfettered access to the United States, especially the last 4 years during the Biden-Harris administration. the risk of sleeper cells being in the United States has certainly increased. The probability has increased. I mean, if there are sleeper cells in the United States, then they could be activated at any time theoretically. And so we need to address that issue. We need to address that potential risk, and the best opportunity to do so is when they are preparing to become active. I think probably the greater risk is sort of this homegrown threat where we have people who are, sort of anti-civilizational ideologies that are morally relative folks that are anti-colonial or open borders, this sort of anti-American threat, which, there could be folks that are inspired by this attack on Iran that are a homegrown sort of threat. And I think that's harder to predict and harder to identify than potential sleeper cells.
Yeah, and that's a great point as well, Ray Alexander, that, that's one category of concern, but that shouldn't necessarily influence whether or not this was the appropriate action related to Iran's nuclear capabilities. So we've got to take a break here, but really appreciate your assessment. And again, for listeners, you can follow Ray Alexander, who is a retired U.S. Naval commander, has a lot of great takes, genuine, fantastic conservative, and you can follow him on X at RMA1776. And we will be right back with more here on Jenna Ellis in the Morning.
The Ten Commandments are the foundation of a life that pleases God.
God gave us rules because rules can keep us safe from danger. They help us to know what is right and wrong.
They are God's word. They are God's laws, and they show that all humans are sinners.
When we instill them in our children, their lives will be forever changed.
They show us the way to live, the way to love our neighbor, the way to love God with all their heart, with all their soul, and with all their mind.
Soli Deo Gloria. To God alone be the glory.
The Ten Commandments Speech Challenge is a great way to get our youth aged 7 to 17 to learn and really focus on the depth of the Ten Commandments. All they have to do is write and present a 3 to 5 minute speech on why the Ten Commandments are important, with special emphasis on the first commandment. It's also a great family project because you can help them write and record their speech before June 30th. All the details are at afr.net/10 Commandments.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Wildman, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio. Hey, we've set our dates for the 2024 tour to Israel, and you can read about that at twholyland.com. That's twholyland.com. We've got the dates, we've got the cost, we've got the itinerary, everything you want to know there, including a bunch of pictures you can look at. Just go to the website, twholyland.com. Folks, we're going to visit the land of the Bible, and it's to be my 30th time to go. I'm just so excited every time to see the faces light up as people see Jerusalem and Bethlehem and Jericho and take a boat ride on the Sea of Galilee and get baptized in the Jordan River. It's just a wonderful time in Israel, the Holy Land. So if you want to join us on our trip in March, go to the website twholyland.com, twholyland.com, and check it out.
Hello, Americans. I'm Todd Starnes. Stand by for news and commentary next. A Tennessee school district has outlawed prayer on school property. The principal at Broadview Elementary School in Winchester came under fire after he concluded a meeting with parents, teachers, and students by mentioning God's name. We pray to you, Father in heaven, for your wonderful blessings, and we ask those things in God's name. Amen. That's what the principal prayed. Someone in the meeting secretly taped that prayer, sent a copy to the Freedom from Religion Foundation, an anti-Christian group of atheists based in Wisconsin. Now, the atheists allege the federal law bans any government official from delivering a prayer. They argue the district should be neutral with regard to religion. The school district conducted an investigation and ordered the principal to no longer pray. Now, atheists are celebrating, and they're calling on their minions to hunt down other workers who might be engaged in Christian activity. Apparently, it's open season on people of faith in America. I'm Todd Stearns.
Welcome back to Jenna Ellis in the Morning on American Family Radio.
Welcome back. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis supports the United States strikes on Israel and pledges to continue the rescue flights from Israel. Speaking on Fox News Sunday morning, DeSantis said that President Trump's policies on Iran have been, quote, consistent and correct. This comes as Governor DeSantis and also Florida State Senator Jay Collins, along with the Grable Rescue Foundation, have chartered many flights getting thousands of Americans out of Israel and returning to Florida. So Senator Jay Collins joins us now from Israel. Senator, thank you so much for your faithfulness to this mission, to America, to our Lord and Savior, of course, first and foremost. And what is the situation there in Israel?
We have pushed forward just a little bit. I am now actually in Cyprus. We're escorting a flight back to the United States, and we'll have people on the ground there. But I will tell you, just yesterday, we were picking up people, and we had rockets incoming. We had to run to bomb shelters. We had to get inside there, and they were close enough that we could see the explosions. It's very real, and these are American citizens in harm's way. But Jen, I'll tell you what, this is exactly why leadership like Governor DeSantis is so incredibly important. And frankly, it's his entire team. He has a moral compass. He knows what matters. It's the people that matter. It's not politics. You look at people like Kevin Guthrie, who is on fire, focused on the mission, Keith, and the people underneath him who are just absolutely incredible. We've had incredible support from the Israeli government, and everything we've needed has been pushed through and been supported. It's been awesome. But in the end, our people are scared. The American citizens there are ready to get home. When you get them on that first plane and we land here in Cyprus or wherever we end up taking them through, you can just see the look of complete relief on their face. It's a pretty incredible feeling as someone who serves our people to know that we're doing exactly that. We are serving our people.
And that is incredible. And the question, the primary question that I've gotten from listeners, seeing how much Florida and the whole administration with Governor DeSantis has been so effective in helping extract U.S. citizens from Israel, why this is Florida instead of the federal government.
Well, Jenna, I'm not going to speak for the federal government, but what I will tell you is from the very first day I met Governor DeSantis, he has followed through with exactly what he said. He knows where his moral compass is. It is a task, a condition, and a standard. And he lets people do what they have to do. He holds them accountable, and we do what's right. We don't do what's easy. We do what's right, no matter how hard it might be. And we're not going to leave Floridians sitting in harm's way. And if that means that we have to fly over to Israel to take them through Jordan, get them on a plane from Amman and fly them back in different manners, we'll absolutely do that. And we'll keep doing that as long as we can or until the airspace opens up. It's about taking care of our people. It's not politics, it's people. And there's a lot of people there. I think we've got several thousand people still on our list. Up to 4,000, maybe 5,000 people is what I'm hearing right now.
Wow, that's incredible. And so what can you tell us about the mission so far and how this has been successful and just what that actually looks like? I mean, I think we're all reading the headlines and thinking this is just amazingly incredible that you can accomplish this.
Well, I think this is what government should look like, right? This is the government working with nonprofits to accomplish incredible things. You have the state of Florida working side by side, the Grable Rescue Foundation. They're incredible. A bunch of former military, soft operators, people who just want to make a difference. and want to give back. They have completed hundreds of rescue missions around the globe. You look at our government doing what they need to do, taking care of our taxpayers, and yes, we have to spend money to do that. But I'll tell you what, to the people who ask if we should spend taxpayer dollars on it, what if that was your family? What if that was your kid, your mom, your dad? You would want them out of harm's way. And in the end, who else is going to do it? If nobody else will stand up, someone has to stand up and do what's right. And that is exactly what Florida is doing. We are serving our people any way we can. Happy to work beside the state, other states, our federal government any way, but we've got to go put people and their safety first, and that's what we're going to keep doing. The mechanism is simple. We pick them up in Israel where they are. We get them on a bus. We bring them back. We get them across the border through one of multiple transportation and travel sites, and then we bring them into one of a few airports in Jordan, and we put them on a plane. We fly them back either directly to Tampa from there or the stop somewhere like Cyprus to refuel, refit, and get them on their way. We're trying to move as many people as we can. Obviously, logistics matter. When those rockets hit just yesterday, we lost several people who didn't want to continue to move right there. It just was too much, too soon, and too kinetic of an environment, so they backed out. So they'll get back on our list. We'll come back and try it again, and hopefully we have better luck for those few people that had to take a knee. But in the end, again, it's about doing what's right, taking care of people. I am just so proud of our state as a whole. I can't tell you how proud. I don't have words to explain how proud I am of what we're doing.
I'm speaking with Senator Jay Collins from the great state of Florida, a state that I'm very proud to be a resident of as well, because of the leadership like you and Governor DeSantis, as you just mentioned. And so along those same lines, how does Florida's response compare to other states like New York or California? Because critics have slammed New York's response as slow. I think that's actually being a little generous.
Yeah. So, Jenna, I don't see any other states out there working. I see us. Florida is, as always, leading the way. I think you've seen it on things I put out on Twitter. You've heard me say it. When Florida leads, America wins. We know what's right. We are the conservative proving grounds of America. We are flying by God's faith in our religion, and faith in who we are as humanity. We understand that government of, by, for the people is what we should have, and that our founding fathers intended it to not be a federal monstrosity, but power pushed down to the people at the closest level we can manage. And that's what Florida is doing. This is actually very much in line with Trump policies. In the emergency management realm, he has clearly stated, and I completely love this part of it, that he wants emergency management run by the states. This is what we're doing. This is a dire emergency. Florida is stepping up and serving our people. And frankly, there's nobody I would rather have run that mission than Kevin Guthrie. He is absolutely incredible. And as we know, Governor DeSantis is the GOAT of governors. And we're in a good place right now. But leadership matters, and that's what we're doing.
And this is just an incredible mission. And so what protocols were in place to verify the identity and also the residency of passengers? And we're seeing that obviously there have been a lot of Floridians, but this has been opened up to Americans. It's not just focused on Florida residents only.
Yeah, we do a 100% verification of all passports. Everything is touched, seen, verified, both digitally and then in place. So if this is a passport that is not valid, we're not moving people who we can't confirm. I'm sorry. We're going to do this right. We take our fiduciary and legal responsibilities to our state and our people incredibly at what it should be, at a level of reality. And we're making sure the right people are coming back. These are American citizens in harm's way. And to your point, most of them are Floridians, but we're not going to turn anybody who has a valid American passport away. They deserve to be home with their families and out of harm's way.
And so speaking of the nonprofit that the state of Florida is partnering with, Grable Rescue Foundation, for those listening who want to help support this mission, how can we get involved in supporting this, perhaps supporting the foundation, and of course praying for you and everyone who's part of this mission?
Jenna, yes, please keep us in your thoughts, keep us in your prayers, absolutely. And grablerescue.org is their website. They're absolutely incredible. I believe they've done over 700 rescue missions around the globe. really cutting-edge things. These guys are just technical experts in every facet of what we do. We have people moving as we speak right now, refitting a mechanism to go out and get the next load of people so we can bring them back to the States. But go to graybullrescue.org. You can go to Florida Department of Emergency Management and step in and support there as well. Volunteer your time to either organization. If you can't give support financially, please support them with your time. We need volunteers, whether it's calling people, supporting people, or just passing the word. I was shocked by how much some of my one Twitter post passed around. I had people from New York and California and Oregon that all ended up with that post, and that was the only way they knew that there was a rescue operation going on. So if people tell you that one person can't make a difference, they're wrong. In this country, we can, and in Florida, we absolutely can. So let's do that together.
Oh, so well said. And you can go to graybullrescue.org and also follow at Graybull Rescue on X. You can also follow Senator Jay Collins, my special guest this morning, at JCollinsFL for Florida. And so just in the last minute I have with you, what is the projection as far as how long the rest of this mission will take, and how long do you plan to be there?
So I'm going to have to rotate back. I have some things that are outside of my control that I have to be a part of. And I'm going to rotate back. The mission will continue. The people are on the ground. And we're going to continue to push this thing as long as we can. I'll still be supporting beside them, working this in the evenings and during the day, however I can. But y'all, we need people to step in and help us do this. What if that was your family? What if it was your mom, your dad, your children in harm's way? We take care of each other. We don't wait for others to do that. That's the Florida way. That's the American way, and that's what we have to do. So, Jenna, I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate you giving me this chance to chat with you and talk about our rescue missions.
Thank you so much. Amen to that. And thank you so much for taking the time to come on and for all of the great work that you're doing here to keep the mission focused, the mission, and for everything that you do. And Governor DeSantis does as well for the great state of Florida. We love and appreciate you so much. And Senator Jay Collins, you can follow him on X. We'll be right back with more here on Jenna Ellis in the Morning.
Hello, I'm Sam Rohr, president of the American Pastors Network, a growing national network of pastors committed to the authority of Scripture and preaching the whole counsel of God. We believe biblical obedience is the foundation for revival, and impacting our culture for Christ is our duty. For too long, the pulpits of America have been silent on the important issues such as marriage and family and assault on our liberty. Join us in the battle for truth on Stand in the Gap weekend, Sunday evenings at 6 p.m. on American Family Radio, and visit us at AmericanPastorsNetwork.org.
Fostering and adoption is not a Band-Aid for infertility.
Nope,
it is a calling, and God can change the desire of your heart and make that so rewarding. It's the most beautiful, selfless thing. It's pure religion, but it's not a fix to I desire biological child. God has to deal with that in your heart separately.
Hannah's Heart, encouraging couples through infertility and miscarriage. Saturdays, 4 a.m. Central on AFR or on the AFR app.
You could be a part of our first ever weekend with AFA, Thursday, October 2nd through Saturday, October 4th in Tupelo, Mississippi.
Our Weekend with AFA event in October is going to be a chance to meet AFA supporters in person.
We'll have tours, fellowship, special speakers, and more.
I'll do some stand-up comedy, Abe will do some preaching, and I'm really excited about it.
It's a Weekend with AFA, Thursday, October 2nd through Saturday, October 4th in Tupelo, Mississippi. Speakers will include Abraham Hamilton III, Jenna Ellis, Tim Barton, Tim Wildman, and more.
I am thoroughly looking forward to our Weekend with AFA coming up in October, where we're going to be able to meet our supporters like yourself, to fellowship, to visit our facilities here in Tupelo, and to have everyone come together for a wonderful weekend.
That's October 2nd through 4th. It's a Weekend with AFA, and we hope you can join us. Register at afa.net/weekend. That's afa.net/weekend.
Do you believe in the absolute inerrancy of God's holy word? Do you believe in the power of the Holy Spirit to radically change lives and empower us to live like Christ? At Wesley Biblical Seminary, we believe God is raising up a movement of people across our nation and across the world who hold fast to the authority of the Bible and the hope of holiness. We are working today to equip tomorrow's pastors and Christian leaders through biblical and theological education in practical ministry that's accredited, affordable, online, and highly personal. Our programs include undergraduate, master's, and doctoral degrees, certificate programs, and even training for lay people. So whatever your next step is in being equipped for ministry, we're here for you. And if you believe these are the kinds of pastors we need leading our churches in the future, we invite you to learn more about partnering with us through giving. Learn more about Wesley Biblical Seminary by visiting us at wbs.edu today.
Welcome back to Jenna Ellis in the Morning on American Family Radio.
Welcome back. Well, let's turn to some domestic issues in politics. And this is out of the state of Texas, where Don Huffines, who you'll recall ran for governor in that state, is running for state comptroller. And he posted this: the political elite are manipulating the system to install another go-along-to-get-along lapdog as state comptroller because they know President Trump's Doge-style transparency would expose everything. But they don't just fear me, they fear you, the taxpayers, the grassroots, and they should. The conservative base in Texas is wide awake, fed up, and ready to take back control. They know that we will win. So Don Huffines joins me now. So Don, I think this is just the latest iteration of the ridiculous, rhino-laden land there in Texas that a lot of Texans are just incredibly frustrated with. So what's the situation going on with your race?
Well, hey, good morning, Jenna. Well, the race is really going fantastic. I'm just so humbled to have so much support from all corners of our great big state. And we're on a track to win, and that's why the elitist Republican establishments are so concerned. They know we're going to win, and they know my campaign to Doge Texas is resonating, and it makes me wonder what it is they think they're really hiding from, because when I Doge it, I'm going to find out everything. I'm going to bring, that sense of urgency that our president has. President Trump is doing, I think, just wondrous work up there in Washington. And I'm going to bring that sense of urgency to Austin, Texas, and we're going to find out where our money's really being spent.
And that's been something that has been a huge focus, as you mentioned, Doge style on the federal level that, of course, conservatives have supported. So what is your mission to bring that type of Doge style transparency to Texas?
Well, it's really simple. It's audit government, expose fraud, waste, and abuse, and then I'm going to fight and do whatever I can to return that savings, those billions of dollars, back to Texas taxpayers, and mainly in property tax relief. And it's the comptroller's office is extremely powerful. Jenna, it's elected statewide, and it doesn't. What makes it so important is it doesn't really report to anyone except the voters, except the people. It doesn't report to the governor or the legislature. They don't really control it unless they pass legislation to rein it in or do whatever they want to do. But it reports to the people, and that's what makes it special. It's got the eyes and ears on every penny the state spends. And I just want to give you a quick scale of that. The state of Texas, now all funds considered in our new budget, we're spending over $500 million a day every single day. That's $350,000 every minute of every day. And we have over 200 state agencies. I'm responsible for that. I mean, the scale is just phenomenal. And so it's really important that we really look into where the money's going so we can return it back to the taxpayers.
Yeah, and this makes a lot of sense, and I know that you have been a really long-time advocate for American citizens actually owning their property. I mean, similarly to what Governor DeSantis faced with the current legislature talking about reducing or eliminating property taxes as a whole. So what changes, if any, would you propose to the current tax structure in Texas related to property taxes, but overall even sales or franchise tax?
Well, I can tell you that this is not a legislative position, but it has a great bully pulpit that I'm going to use, and I'm going to use it every week of the year to really pound on the legislators to give the money back to the Texas taxpayers. We don't have deficit spending in Texas. We have to have a balanced budget. But there's a lot of gimmicks out there that the legislature uses to circumvent that. And they don't. And we have a lot of surplus. Texas has a lot of revenue surplus, and I don't look at it as a surplus. I just look at it as we've overcharged our customers, which are the taxpayers. I'm the first person who's going to take this office that knows and will reiterate and promote the fact that the money belongs to the taxpayers. It doesn't belong to the government. The state of Texas doesn't create any money. All we do is spend taxpayers' money, and that's who it belongs to. So my goal is to get that back in property tax relief because, like you said, Texans are very tired of renting their property from the government.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's talk about the political landscape then there in Texas. You know, when you're talking about how the establishment elites are kind of trying to control and install their preferred candidate. We've seen that people like me who are, you know, not Texas residents, but we're seeing what's going on in Texas from, you know, other states like here in Florida and elsewhere. And we're kind of thinking, what's going on with Texas? Because that used to be a really solidly red state. What's going on in the GOP there with the ridiculous impeachment of Ken Paxton, for example, that happened. The overhaul just last election of so many of those ridiculous rhinos being primaried, which was a good thing. Overall, what is the landscape of the GOP and how the political calculations are being made in Texas?
Well, look, we still have holdovers from the Karl Rove and the Bush people that are running some of our party, but we've got great tailwinds from President Trump. We really do, and the MAGA world is alive and well here, and we're thriving, and I just think it's going to be a great new day in Texas. And these guys are grasping at straws. They're drowning, and they will drown. The MAGA world and real conservatives have taken over our party, and we're going to prevail in our elections. My seat is an open seat. There's the incumbent left, and so it gives it makes it a much more competitive situation, obviously. And look, Jenna, I just want to say that I've got so many great endorsements for this campaign. I want to be sure and tell everyone that. I mean, Ted Cruz shot a video for me right when I got in the race about 90 days ago, and then Vivek Ramaswamy came in for me. You know, he's one of the creators of Doge. I've got Ron Paul, and he hardly doesn't endorse hardly anyone. And got Riley Gaines. And just last week, we announced Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk's endorsed the campaign. And I've got almost every conservative organization in the state of Texas. I've got them. We have an executive committee that runs our state party. There's 62 members of that. I've got 75% of them endorsing my campaign, national committee men and women. And it's just so humbling. I'm putting out endorsements 2 to 3 every week, and we haven't stopped, and we won't stop, whether it's Moms for America, Moms for Liberty, all the gun groups. I mean, Texas Eagle Forum. It's really phenomenal, and we're really set up very well right now to prevail in this campaign.
Well, and so with this, then, you know, where do you see Texas going then in terms of its leadership direction, not just for the comptroller's office, if you succeed in your campaign, but in terms of, you know, overall with the state legislature and then some of these other executive and independent offices?
I think Texas is going to move further to the right. I think, of course, looks like we are having a competitive U.S. Senate campaign, and then with this race, it's a statewide race, my race, and then we're going to have an attorney general. Texas attorney general race is going to be competitive, and it's kind of like a nice little slate. All the conservatives are going to line up and vote, and I think we're going to prevail across the board for the state of Texas. So going forward, it's going to be a new day in Texas, and we don't have term limits here, so that does present a lot of issues. It's really, really hard to beat these incumbents as they get entrenched, as you know. But Texas has no term limits on anything, and now we've got some people that are that are leaving office. So it does free up some space there for new conservatives that are actual conservatives and MAGA lovers and really want to emulate what President Trump's doing. And that's what we're going to do. I do want to say real quick, Jenna, how important it is to Doge Texas. And it's more than just looking at the numbers. And when I was in the Texas Senate, I started looking at one government agency, and I realized they were stealing millions of dollars from taxpayers. And I got the FBI involved and got 6 people put in prison, and I got the agency closed down. But it's really a much smaller scale than what's going on in Texas. And that agency spent way over $100 million a year, but Texas spends that every 6 hours. And so it's imperative that we really dig in to find out if there's fraud, waste, and abuse in our state system. And look, no one likes cleaning out the garage, but you sure like it when you pull your vehicle in. So, and that's
how did you know I did that this weekend? That was my weekend project, and absolutely I concur with that analysis. It wasn't fun, but I like having a clean garage now. So there's that. But also more broadly, and I'm speaking with Don Huffines, who's a candidate for a state comptroller out of Texas. You can follow him on X at Don Huffines, and when we're looking at the base overall of the wider swaths of conservatives, it's interesting to me because Texas is in the news this morning as well because Governor Greg Abbott vetoed SB 3, which was all part of the. It was the bill regarding marijuana and THC, and would have banned THC across the state, and that was something that Abbott actually vetoed, that the state legislature put through, and a lot of so-called conservatives are lauding Abbott for that, where that's been a conservative position for a while, that we don't want to increase the access to THC or marijuana. That was a debate that we had even here in Florida last November. Thankfully, our amendment here failed. But what does that signal more broadly to you, potentially, about not just the leadership of Texas ongoing, but the state and how conservatives, I think, are shifting a little bit in some of their not only priorities, but the way that they view some of these more contentious social issue topics?
Well, it definitely does send a message when Abbott vetoes that. I know there was conflicting ideas about the validity of passing government interfering in all these businesses selling it. But for me, I'm not in a legislative position for comptroller. I'm specifically tasked with doing so much other things. I'm really kind of glad I'm not in the legislative spot. I mean, just to give you an idea on what the comptroller's got to do now, they've tasked the comptroller to handle all of the school choice program. Texas is going to roll out the biggest, most robust school choice program in the history of the country, and all of it is in the comptroller's office. The comptroller really gets to decide who's going to manage it, who's going to be on the waiting list. We're going to have 100,000 accounts, education savings accounts for these kids. And what I'm most excited about, I'm also in charge of marketing it and the wait list that'll be on there. So I'm also in charge of just everything related to it. The comptroller is, and that's just one of the many tasks that the comptroller's got to handle. And so I'm just so pumped up that we're finally, when I'm there, we're finally going to have what I call an actual Republican in that spot. And we've only had 3 Republican comptrollers in the history of our state. And it's like the treasurer, and it's going to be a new day for Texas.
And that's really interesting that you mentioned there's only been 3 Republicans. And do you think it's because a lot of because this isn't in the legislative capacity, a lot of voters are so focused on, their state House and Senate, and obviously the governor, and some of these other elections that are incredibly important offices just don't get as much attention. Well,
no, Texas was all Democrats. I mean, people forget that the Republican Party in Texas is relatively new for the state of Texas. I mean, 30 years, and that's about right. We've controlled everything in Texas for over 20 years, all the House, the Senate, and all the statewide offices. And, these are 4-year terms for these positions. And so we haven't had a chance for many Republicans to win. And the original Republicans that won office in the state of Texas were Democrats, and that there were conservative Democrats that switched to the Republican Party, and they still are. Many Republicans in Texas have an R by their name, and they're really not Republicans. They're really more conservative Democrats, but they put the R there, of course, because that's what they need to have to win. And that process is just ongoing now to try to weed them out and try to get real actual Republicans, is what I call them, that believe in our state party platform, which is tremendous state party platform. It clearly defines who we are as Texas Republicans. And so gradually we're making good progress on that, but it's unfortunately a slow process.
Yes. Well, we wish you the best of luck there in Texas and with your campaign. And thank you for highlighting the important issues that the Comptroller's Office does, the future of Texas, and then also, what this has been like politically. And that's why, voters need to be very careful to look into these candidates, not just trust if they have an R after their name and you're a conservative Republican, then that's who you vote for. And these are incredibly important offices to the state, and that's true in every state. So always appreciate it, Don Huffines. You can follow him on X at Don Huffines. We're already out of time for this episode of Jenna Ellis in the Morning, so happy Monday. Strap in. It's going to be a long week. You can reach me and my team, Jenna, at afr.net.